Howdy, folks. Michael here again with the Reason RX podcast, talking about all things education. As you know, we are rational animals. To be successful in life, to be happy, to thrive, live and survive and thrive, we need to consider the whole that we are, mental and physical. Get some mental and physical prowess going in, like Abraham Lincoln. In education, we should have part of that. As the ancient Greeks saw, there should be some fitness involved, physical fitness in education, make ourselves better. There's too much influence of Plato and some other bad ideas where it's all people are treated as brains in a vat. Just sit in a chair like a little brain sitting in a vat, and that's fine. And that's how everything's done. But clearly, that's wrong. If that were good and successful and appropriate for humans, the rational animal, we wouldn't have all the health problems and psychological problems and social problems that we do nowadays. Okay, that's some evidence, but there's things like the book Spark by Jon Ratey, how physical exercise is important for proper optimal mental function, attitude, memory, behavior, mental function. So we're going to focus more on physical education today. Jon Morey's back. And physical education, think about your own. Okay, education is something we do to prepare the young for adult life. And again, it should be holistic. If we look at the physical education aspect, are we really prepared for adult life? If physical education was doing its job, would we be prepared to play with our pets, play with our children, to be functional when we're quote-unquote older? Like, if people had a good physical education when they were young, if they learned what they needed to for their whole adult life, what is it that a human needs? Would they be falling and breaking their hips and so on when they're in their 70s? Would there be like this epidemic of obesity and these other problems? I don't think so. Even my physical education when I was younger, way back in the 70s and 80s and 60s, even way back then, I don't think was sufficient. If it weren't for MoveNat, I would not be where I am. I did not learn in school. And that's not to blame the coaches of their particular people. They learned from someone else. They were in a context, in a culture. There were people responsible for teaching them that failed. We've got to look for the correct cause, do like a root cause analysis, as it's called. One thing they call that is like the 5 whys. It's not necessarily asking why 5 times in particular to get to a root cause. It could be 3. It could be 13, it could be 25, but we got to ask why and not just blame one particular person. Oh my God, my high school was so horrible, my coach is so stupid. It's like, why are that way? I'm not going to blame my coaches or the school in particular, but there is someone to blame, and there was a failure because I did not learn the things I needed as a human to function optimally as an adult. Balance, strength, technique. We just played at it, So that's what we're going to talk about today. What is going on with physical education? We're going to see what Jon thinks, see if he agrees, disagrees, what the state of education, physical education is, problems with it, why, what we can do about it. So can you say hi to folks again, Jon?
Oh yeah, hi. How you doing today?
So, Jon introduced himself in a previous episode, so I can link to that. We got his background in there and a nice, long, good discussion there. So, how's it been going with you, Jon? Since what was that? When did we do the last one? Where's the date on this thing?
March, February, sometime this year.
So, Is there a date? Is there 22 March? Okay, 22nd of March. So yeah,
22.
good. Better memory than I had.
Yeah,
All right.
we've done pretty good with moving ahead with the MoveNat education system for schools for educators. I
Sweet.
think I just looked at that date earlier. The first event for that's going to be for MoveNat certified educators, MCEs, will be this August in Albuquerque, I believe.
Nice. That'll be beautiful.
Yeah, it's going to be the first one. Um, I'm not sure if I know they're having a sale right now on different events and things, certifications, aquatics, combatives. I'm not sure if that one's included in that, but it'd be a great thing to be at the inaugural. I'm planning at this point. I'm planning on being there myself, so should be a lot of fun. I believe that's the 13th of August.
Okay. I'll have to put a link in the show notes for folks about that. That's a good announcement. And so could you elaborate more on that? I think, did we discuss that a little bit last time or not? I forgot.
Yeah, we
But
were kind of in the preliminary works, and then Megan had over at MoveNat, Megan and I had discussed, and she wanted to kind of hold off until we had developed it a little further, I think, so we could until this time when we talked. But it's going pretty good now. The MCE course, so, you're an MCT, MoveNat certified trainer. We came up. Well, I came up with the idea of developing the MoveNat training program specifically for educators in around 2017. I was asked by the Michigan State, I can't think of their group right now, physical educators in Michigan, like the school system, public schools, physical educators, to provide some continuing education credits. And I went in, we did a weekend of MoveNat. MoveNat style and how they can incorporate in the classroom, and there was such an interest and
cool.
Pullback on that, like feedback on that I put together a MoveNat training program specifically for physical educators or in school, and I called it MoveNat certified educators as opposed to trainers, because the idea was to differentiate MoveNat being used in school as opposed to, say, a commercial use, of the training, like setting up a MoveNat classes or like a facility. I run a facility here in Michigan, MoveNat gym out of my clinic. But what led to that is excuse me, excuse me, Doug and Tyler and a couple of the other trainers or physical educators came back to me and said, well, MoveNat is great, but we need to tweak this and tweak this and tweak that, for school. So that's what I kind of did. And I came up with the MCE sort of overview and outline, and then I went to Erewhon and MoveNat in general and said, let's kind of get this going in this format. And then, we had a few administrative snags back and forth with the concept. And one of our guys, Doug, ran the class MoveNat in his school as sort of a pilot study. And he actually just retired this year. But the last 2 years over with the pandemic and the school being out kind of poleaxed our study, dropped it off because school wasn't meeting in person. The kids weren't partaking. But the academic school year and a half before that, they were making great progress. We were seeing differences in the kids' emotional self-regulation, in the school classrooms. They were seeing improvement in grades.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's been a great thing. We're finally getting around to MoveNet. And then I got back in touch with them, and they approached me a couple years ago and wanted to revisit this and pick it up. So I've turned it over to them almost completely. And then Megan's done a great job with that. And they've got it all packaged and ready to go, like I said, early this August. So it's pretty exciting to see it finally come around.
Cool.
In a big format.
So we'll talk more in depth, folks, with Jon and Megan in August about the MCE program. But that's a little background to it and a little bit about what will be going on at the MCE in August. certification for educators in applying MoveNat in a school physical educational setting. Do you want to give folks any more info, or is that enough for now, John? And we'll wait till August to say more. Or...
Well, that's probably a general overview for now. Obviously, you can go to the MoveNat website and look for the certification events or get more information from them. But I'm pretty excited about it. I'm sure in August, I have to talk with Megan. Maybe we'll do something right after the event and kind of
Awesome.
feedback. Maybe during the event would be kind of neat too.
Yeah, cool.
Get some feedback. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. I know they're excited about it. So we'll see how it goes.
And yeah, I'll put a link, as I said, for folks in the show notes about it. But so it's something for basically any educator or anybody who works with kids to apply MoveNat in a situation.
Yeah, mostly in the classroom. Now, as I understand it, Megan has developed the MCE. Like I said, my focus was on restructuring the basic MoveNat training, none of the techniques or the curricula, but restructuring the format of training so that it was something less commercially viable and more specifically for classroom instruction, like for kids. And Megan's developed it into, I don't want to talk too much out of turn, but there's two versions of it. One would be for the physical educators, and then the second version would be for classroom teachers. Ways they can incorporate small movement snacks into the day,
Cool.
or kind of supplement or support what the kids are doing in the physical education, the PE class with the MoveNat. So there's two versions of that. I'm not going to speak too much on that because I'm not quite clear on how that's going to be set up yet. But she's done a great job with the kind of fleshing this process out.
And so, do you know what the people will be getting at this upcoming MCE? Why would they want to go? What would they have to look forward to?
As far as the training,
Yeah.
they're kind of keeping close to the vest, but I do know that it'd be the equivalent of a level 1 training. So I'm not sure on the exact curriculum that's been developed for the course. Like I said, I kind of turned the whole thing over to MoveNat. It was one of those projects that we had going real well, and then it got kind of scuttled and set further down the list of priorities. And then I was getting around to bringing it back, and MoveNat approached me and wanted to pick up on it, and I said, I don't have the time right now to do it service, so you guys take off with it.
Cool. All right. So that's going to be one solution we need. Try to get more of a trend going in the culture. There was some good stuff way back. Physical education used to be done a lot differently. I can put some links to that in the show notes. For example, in the 60s, La Sierra had a program in the classical tradition that was very influential. JFK loved it and was promoting it, but unfortunately, and that did a good job of preparing people for what they need as an adult. But unfortunately, things went to kind of mindless sports without technique and without any real physical education going on. Just running around, however, without method, without rhyme or reason. And clearly that's not too... It might help teachers take up time and do stuff, but they should want to do more than that for their students and their children and the youth. Might do that, but it doesn't do anything out of it. Clearly, a lot of people don't continue to do athletics after high school, after they're forced to. Education should be something that helps people and trains them and motivates them to continue on their own or in small groups after high school. So then we get into why is the MCE program needed? Why do we want this trend back in the culture like Lassiere had? What do you think is going on with modern fitness? What are some of the problems? What do you see wrong with it?
Well, I think you came closer when you said people couldn't discontinue athletics or fitness pursuits after they're not forced to do it. In gym class at school, there's the old joke about people hating gym class or not being able to pass gym class, and people see it more as a chore, something they're forced to do. And this is harder to get over now with the internet and social media, the ubiquity of connection. They get their dopamine hits not from playing tag with their friends out in the yard, or hide and seek or a ball game or something. They get their dopamine hits from how many likes they get on Instagram or Snap, whatever. I don't do any of that. But you know what I mean? They're on the phone constantly. Can't put that phone down. And when they're bored, they pick the phone up instead of boredom used to be. It's an evolutionary, psychological, biological drive to get you up, like you said, doing something. Humans don't just lay around bored. Sometimes people talk about indigenous populations or hunter-gatherers, how they spent so much time, not working compared to like modern society, but they weren't just idly passing time. That was active recovery. If you're walking 12 miles a day trying to track down game or repairing your shelter or getting water, you're tired. They would purposely rest strategically during the heat of the day or something. So boredom would get you up moving around. And kids now, when they're bored, they get on the latest video game or they binge watch something on Netflix. They're not really driven, to go out and play and run around anymore. And we're even seeing that in the reduced physical education time in school. They've reduced gym class to a couple times a week instead of once a day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's terrible. I think we're going to see some really, we're already seeing the tragic results of those policies.
Yeah. And then with boredom, there's a lot, the topic is physical education. So we focus more there, but there's also, they're not connecting. They're not really learning to connect with people. They're connecting to their phone. And while they might be kind of connecting people, it's like focus on the computer. And actually talking to someone like by texting is very different than talking to them in person. They're not learning these social skills. They're not learning creativity, imagination, how to take charge. Instead of, oh, I'm bored, what can I do? There's that key word of the implicit thing, I'm responsible. Here, they just grab their phone and have it come to them and more passively. They're not learning to be training themselves to be the active, like they need to be a proper, independent adult who can be a contributing member of society.
Yeah, no, I agree. It all starts with physical competence, which is what childhood used to give us through all the play.
Mm-hmm.
You'd run around, you'd climb, you realize that, kids now, if they can't do something on the first try, they just I'm not going to do it. They just give up. There's no incentive. They didn't learn that as a child, like out on the playground when they were trying to climb over we used to have climbing structures when I was a kid, big logs and things, and they'd want to climb over these. And sometimes you couldn't, or you're scared of the height, or you didn't have the strength, but you'd keep doing it until you finally got over there, and you learned perseverance that way through, like any other human, through physical activity. And we're lacking that now. And then you see when these young adults, they don't really want to do anything that's challenging.
Yeah. And as we say, it's not just like, well, we have technology to do it for us. So what? No, because it affects your brain, your epigenetics, your behavior, your attitude, your memory, your creativity. There's all kinds of consequences that occur, whether one's aware of them or not. And we should not want that for our kids, for the youth. We should want what's better for them.
Yeah, think about the neurologic development in the brain in toddlers when they're learning to walk. It's that constant stress, that youth stress, that causes the neurologic development for your motor programs to come online, and for your muscle tone. You're setting that through your whole life for those challenges of crawling and then pulling up on the table or the couch and then taking a few toddling steps, getting your balance. Imagine if you just, I mean, there are isolated studies like this where you just carried a child around and they never had to learn to crawl. And there's those correlation studies between performance in mathematics and how early and well a child crawled. I'm not saying there's causation. I'm not making a claim, but there's definite correlation between physically active children and intelligence later on in the form of, I don't want to go down any slippery slopes here, but mathematics, linguistics, spatial intelligence, that all stems from physical development as a child. And we just have to convince the culture or get that back in the zeitgeist that how important that is.
Yeah.
It's very difficult right now.
Yeah, I think, as I've said in some other episodes, we're social animals. People conform. There's hierarchy, whether people like it or not. It's just a matter of getting the so-called influencers or so-called people in power to do the right thing so the others follow along. Just like I've said on a different episode, I don't like the Kardashians and people watching in some context, but something like that is going to happen. People are social animals. They gossip. They have to have something to talk about. They look at who the kind of leader is that sets some trends and talk about that person and want to act like them and stuff. So it's not getting rid of that entirely, but having that be reasonable and appropriate for a human. So if we had someone like the Kardashians, which is there's always going to be something like that. Look out through human history or look today. And it just needs to be modified to show, set a good example of things, like have it be the in thing or whatever to go out in the woods, instead of talking about, oh, did you see the Kardashians' new dress or whatever? Oh, it should be, hey, did you see her walking barefoot in the woods like that? Or did you see her eating this or eating that or whatever? And then all the people want to do that too.
Get more experiences. You see, since you mentioned the Kardashians, a lot of our fitness role models and influencers, they've kind of conflated physical ability and performance with aesthetics. You got to maintain these unrealistically low body fat percentages and all these physical ideals, and that's come to be conflated with fitness. As opposed to performance. We've got people that go out on these events with us. They'll walk 10, 12 miles a day with a full pack in their 80s, or they're overweight individuals, and you wouldn't think they're not the stereotypical picture of health, but they're out there. And then I've had some other people go with us that are really good shape, at least their appearance, and man, they're wiped out 3 miles into the bush. They can't do it. So we've kind of conflated that in our fitness ideals, but it's you might agree with this. It's hard to show physical competency, like in a demonstrable way over social media or these what are they called, TikTok, the little videos.
Yeah.
You got to look good because people aren't going to stick around long enough to see that you've got excellent fitness in other ways. You can walk and lift and carry and jump and climb. And then people see, one of the things that got me, because I raised 4 boys, is parkour videos. And the boys love to run and jump and parkour and leap over things. And, it's really exciting to watch. One of the things I always did was show them, once they get hopped up, I'd sit down and make them watch a half an hour of YouTube parkour fail videos.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Kind of bring them back into, get that risk and danger association back in. Because they watch these videos and and it's great to watch, but not just everybody can run and jump off of this off a fence 10 feet across this chasm and then land, pinpoint landing. They don't see how many takes that took, 40 takes.
Or how many years to
ankles.
get to that point.
Yeah.
The prior skills they had to build on. Yeah, it's one thing about the media, like you're saying. A lot of people are no longer very well able to differentiate between what they see and what they can do. They don't know what it really means. They don't know about fitness, about the risk. They're incompetent, so they're clueless about what it takes to do something else.
Yeah, they didn't learn that as children.
Yeah.
Coming out without those. And there's nothing wrong with failure. That's the problem. No, everybody gets a trophy now. You don't want your children to fail, and we've done them such a great disservice. They weren't in gym class and realized that, hey, I can only do 3 pull-ups in gym class. They get that dose of reality, as opposed to walking around thinking, well, I could do the pull-ups if I had to. The worst of this is martial arts and combative sports. You ever watch a UFC match with a bunch of guys and they're giving advice about what they would do or how how they would fight? It's mind-boggling to me. I've been in that industry over 30 years, and I constantly have to remind people, like, those are professional fighters. That's what they do. They might have made a tactical error or a slip in there. Somebody's got to lose, but you're not going to do any better sitting in your couch with your pizza and beer just because you went to a few jiu-jitsu classes or hit the bag in the garage. You're not equivalent, but people really do lose perspective, like you said, of their own personal competency levels because we didn't give them that as children. They weren't allowed to fail.
And I think martial arts is a good example. In a proper physical education, people would learn both explicitly and through experience the step-by-step process you got to go through to build skills. Just like you got martial arts, white belt in different colors, white, yellow, green, red, whatever, blue, purple, black. That should be explicit because that's partly what an education is about. That, because if people want to know and be independent as adults and able to help their friends and help the society, help themselves also, they need to know partly what is the knowledge process. How do we learn? How do we grow in skills? That's part of physical education. Instead of just doing a bunch of stuff, we got education and we play like baseball when we're in 4th grade and we play baseball when we're in 10th grade or basketball. It's just the same stuff. They're not getting an education. That is a failure because in education you learn we got to do counting, and then we do addition, and then we do subtraction, and then multiplication, and then division, and arithmetic, and algebra. And we can build up like the different belts. That has to be drilled in, instilled in the mind to have a proper education. And it should be in fitness too. So when someone sees something in parkour, they shouldn't just be, oh, cool, that looks so easy, let me do it. It should be the immediate context there that should be established by a proper education is, what skills do I need to do that? Where am I and where is that? But there's zero of that in most of the culture. I think some people, of course, clearly can do it.
That's what
I can because of MoveNet, thank goodness. Without MoveNet, I'd be like clueless. But I find it.
You realize where you're at, where you started.
Yeah, and then I know instead of, oh, here's a new skill I want to get, I'm just going to try it out of nowhere. You might try it just for practice every now and then, but you know that even if I can do it, there's still skills prior skills I want to keep targeting and strengthening to get better at that one thing. And that's something that kind of ladder of knowledge, that kind of hierarchy of fitness skills is missing. And that's like one problem that needs to be addressed that like the La Sierra program did and MoveNet does. But
that's what we're hoping to do with the MCE. Like you said, math, first you learn about counting and like sequential ordering, and then the number lines, and then addition, and then you kind of build. You don't start with calculus. Same way in first grade, or kindergarten, you learn your letters, and then you learn some basic sentence structure. Then you learn to sound out and read, and then learn to write and compose. that's always been missing in fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Your physical education classes to this point have been, well, we got to keep these kids busy. Just running around is enough, so we'll have them play dodgeball for an hour. Well, they don't play dodgeball anymore. I guess it's too aggressive or whatever. But play with scooters or play basketball. Whereas the MCE will hopefully set the schools up that K through first grade, we're just teaching the kids, get them on the ground, get the importance of their positions and transitions, and so they become aware of their center of gravity as related to their base of support, and then kind of build on those skills. Maybe have the third and fourth graders doing, jumping and vaulting, and then the fifth and sixth graders with a little more skeletal development doing lifting and carrying or throwing, catching,
Mm-hmm.
Even combatives. I've always been a proponent of teaching combatives as a part of physical education in the early grades. You imagine the decrease you'd see in bullying or even attacks on women or anything if every kid in fourth grade knew that every other kid had the same training and self-defense tactics.
Yeah.
Sucker bullies and sucker punchers go after who they think are victims.
Yeah.
If it was well established that everybody knew how to fight, at least the basics, I think you'd see a decrease in that sort of thing.
Yeah, because even if someone thought they could win and could bully them, they still know that there's a risk of injury.
Yeah, exactly.
Most people want to avoid that. Yeah. Agreed.
So hopefully we'll see this MCE in the future be the equivalent of learning your letters and learning your numbers before you go on to reading and math. Before you get on to athletics or physical fitness and education later, you just get the basics early on. That's kind of the.
And then there'd be a lot of benefits. Like there are failure videos in parkour that people need to see, but there's a lot of failure videos for a lot of things in general. A lot of people get hurt in ways that wouldn't happen if they had a more proper, deeper, comprehensive physical education.
Yeah. You see this, I heard this recently, or read this recently. We have a culture of, what is it called? Culture of comfort. That's not the right word. Culture of relief. As a physician, I really do see an uptick the last maybe 10, 15 years. Patients come in, if something is even the slightest bit uncomfortable, they want it fixed, like right now. It's like, well, you sprained your ankle. It's going to hurt for about a week. It'll get better each day, but there's nothing wrong with the fact that it hurts. There's a difference between something being painful because it hurts or something that does damage. And people, we've lost that distinction. And people come in now and they don't, they're 60 years old, and if they've got an ache or a pain, they don't feel as impervious as they did when they were 20. They think something is wrong. And I have to explain to them, like, no, you're 65, man. Shit's going to ache.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it is. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that your quality of life is down. Yeah, it's frustrating at times.
Yeah. When do you think when do you think physical education started to go wrong in our country?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So, personal bias aside, because I was elementary school into middle school in the 70s, so, and into the 80s, I would say probably late 80s, early 90s.
I think earlier, but, of course it's going to be different degrees in different places, and there are some places where it was still maintained. If it was all lost, we wouldn't know it at all.
Yeah.
There's some people who have kept it, but why would you say, 80s?
Well, again, I think probably just my own confirmation bias, because that was the school age I went in. And I remember when I was in school, we had 3 recess breaks a day, plus lunch.
Nice.
We had gym every day except Friday, because Friday was you either went to music class or art class, And then by the time I hit high school, we still had gym mandatory 3 times a week, but by the time I was a freshman, by the time I was a senior, it had gone down to gym was just a one-day elective. So it just seemed to happen at least where I'm at in mid-Michigan, it seemed to happen all of a sudden. And it sort of corresponded to computers. Like we finally had a computer room in the high school. There were like 10 machines in there. And it's like you could choose to take these computer courses or the gym class. And for me, that's kind of where it stopped. But like you said, it could have started in other places as early as the 60s, the 70s.
And I think part of it came from probably some of the 40s and 50s, more furniture, chairs, and everything with more industrial production, which is good. There's nothing wrong with chairs and industrial production. It's just a matter of how we use it. Like, I think some people have said that even way back in the 50s, people noticed that some people going into the Army could no longer, like more and more people could not, even back then, could not do a deep squat.
Yeah.
And so and then I think that's one reason why, this will be one reason why sports might have been okay at first. People would get a broad range of activities growing up by running around in nature, and they had good role models. And so then when they can go into sports, they're still doing all this other stuff outside of school, and they had this background. But then once that goes away, then it's like sports are not doing the same thing because that background is gone. So people could learn to some extent like a little better technique if they got the good movement role models and they're conditioned by their environment, let's say. But clearly that's not the case anymore. People are indoors too much. They hide. They got to protect themselves from the world. Wear shoes. People even wear shoes indoors. People used to just wear shoes sometimes outdoors, but now it's like I wouldn't be surprised if some people wear them to bed.
Some people didn't even own shoes, until they were like a teenager, could get a job.
Yeah.
Like my grandfather had shoes that he wore on Sundays, to go to church, but other than that, he just didn't wear his shoes.
Yeah. And then now it's like if you don't wear shoes, they think you're weird, even though many people in the U.S. are Christian. Okay, well, if going barefoot is weird, so what are you saying about Jesus? What are you saying about the apostles? What are you saying about your ancestors? Oh, it looks like we lost signal a little bit. John, are you there? I heard the little beep beep. Uh-oh. Okay, folks, I'll just keep talking until John can come back on. Maybe I got to call him again or something. But, yeah, barefoot is a typical thing. We should look more at human history to determine what's right and not just get carried away in what's around us like the Kardashians. Kardashians should go barefoot. There should be more barefoot in our world. Let's see. Let me send a chat to John. Are you still there? Oh, there he's gone. Okay, I'll have to call him back, folks. Let's see. Try again. Beep beep. Bad signal. Oh well. Okay, so maybe we are done with our interview with John. I shall email him and see what's going on. Sorry, folks. Internet trouble. Okay, a little message comes up on my Skype, says John isn't online, so I guess he's kicked off. But we got to discuss a little bit there anyway. Oh, there he is. Are we back? Awesome Skype music makes you want to dance. awesome music like Skype has, how could people not be exercising and in shape? Listen to this, it just makes you want to dance. Okay, maybe not. Try again. John is unavailable. Good.
There we go.
All right, like I was just telling folks on the episode, while Skype was calling you and making that noise, it's like, how the hell can people be out of shape? I mean, with that music, that little sound that Skype has when a call's going through, doesn't that just make them want to dance? It's like, damn, that's like, do-do-do, do-do-do.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. We were doing good, and then just, the internet.
Yeah, but barefoot, so yeah, people need to consider how all their ancestors were barefoot. If they're religious, Muhammad, Jesus, the Buddha. Sorry, barefoot. So when you say barefoot people are crazy, what are you saying about your religion? People need to think about that a little bit more. Slow down, stop, think. As Henry David Thoreau says, avast, why so fast? Why so seemingly fast but deadly slow? Something like that.
You ever notice that's kind of the reason once we started wearing shoes, you can go faster. When you're barefoot, you have to sort of slow down and pick your placement of your feet, and walk with mindfulness and care. And shoes allow us to move really quickly without a certain degree of mindfulness, I think.
And just so folks know, it's not like you can go absolutely faster with shoes than without, because people run marathons and win barefoot. But the point is, in some situations, you can mindlessly run without paying attention to where you're putting your feet with shoes. Would you agree, John? Or
yeah, no, that's a good way to say it. Wearing shoes, not literally faster, but it allows people to perform more mindlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you run across a surface that's more forgiving with a padded pair of Nikes than you could with your bare feet, for sure.
But then it takes away a lot of interaction and knowledge of the environment. It's like separating yourself. I don't like to do that. I like to go barefoot and pay attention to things. People say, well, what about the broken glass and the nails that are all over the place? I look down. Well, I don't see them. Where is this stuff that's all over the place? And for another thing, pick up the trash. I pick up trash. A reason why the glass and nails and stuff isn't so much out where I run is because I picked it up.
Yeah.
And then having to think about that stuff, I prefer in animals and snakes. Snakes are animals, of course, but that makes me more mindful of my environment. Instead of like some people, I've been out in the woods with some people, and I'm like feeling like I'm part of the environment and looking around, and they're just wah, 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 talking to each other like they're in a little echo chamber, wah, 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 not paying attention to the environment or what's around them, as if it's just some like they're in a house and it's some mindless background that just serves them. They're not part of it. Then you're missing a lot, and then you're not learning the skills you need to take into a mall or a parking lot or a crowded venue where you want to pay attention to what's going around you to help you avoid criminals. Yeah,
it's a definite carryover. We have we've been on a few hikes. There's an island here in northern Lake Michigan, Manitou Island. It's all rustic, and we go out there each year. And we went a few years ago, and most of us hike barefoot. We spend the weekend barefoot, and that sets us at a slow pace to enjoy nature. And we had one woman that had gone with us that was new, and she had hiking boots on. And she turned out to be one of these hikers that just pride themselves on the number of miles covered in a weekend, not necessarily experience like what they saw or what they did. And she had these heavy boots on, man, and she took off. The rest of the party, there's 10 or 12 of us, were barefoot, and we're just sort of, strolling and enjoying ourselves. And she'd end up in camp 4 or 5 hours before us, and kind of she never went with us again. She kind of complained about it, but while we were lagging, but walking in shoes, we have one of our merit deeds.
Why are you outside? Go walk in the mall.
We have one called the long walk, and you get a bead if you complete your 12-mile walk barefoot. So we've had a lot of people do that. one of our members, Jill, she's in her 60s. She runs Tough Mudders, marathons, Go Ruck. She's endurance athlete, but she was always terrified to go barefoot outside. And she recently completed her 12 miles barefoot walk in the woods. So that was a huge milestone for her. Now she's not as scared to go barefoot outside.
Sweet. Yeah, and that's one thing. The La Sierra program, I think they might wear shoes, but the boys were all shirtless.
Yeah.
You know, they need to be out soaking up the sun, stuff like that.
Yeah, get that exposure to the weather.
Yeah, be part of it. There's a lot of mindfulness that occurs when you're doing things correct. You're engaged entirely instead of like that one lady being mindless. Like, it reminds me, one time I took someone out and I was teaching them some stuff, and we did a hand-foot crawl, what some people would call a bear crawl. And so we finish, and I go, okay, what'd you see? Nothing. I go, did you see that crack over there from the dryness? Did you see that dead insect? Did you see that? It was years ago, so I forgot some things. Did you see this and this and this? Nope. Or, you know, take someone out and we're walking along and I'm like, watch out for the antlion. You know, okay, maybe you can step there. Some people don't care about an antlion, but I mean, it's trying to survive in the wild. Like, don't step on, you know, little antlions that make the little holes in the conical holes in the dirt.
Yeah.
And like an ant will go down there and they get it. And it's like, or spiders, like, don't just like tear down the spider nest, like duck around it. You got the opportunity to move and practice mobility and things like that, instead of just mindlessly going through a spider web, pushing it out of the way or something, or tromping over antlions. You know, people don't pay attention to a lot of stuff like that. And more.
Yeah, just down to people are more, well, you know, they say like evil occurs more out of ignorance than malice, because I think people just aren't aware.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think about not stepping on that bug or, like you said, tearing down the web. Now, obviously, if there's a spider in my house, he's got to go, because that's my house. You know,
No,
we can outside, but I got kids in the house, so he's got to go.
it depends on the spider. They're good. Maybe just put them in a different room or something. They're helping take care of like some insects, keeping your house clean. Too bad you can't have a little thing you can take out of your wall and put the spider in there and close it.
Yeah, like a spider house. We usually throw them outside in the front. We put them in the backyard. The chickens get them, you know.
Yeah. Cool. Good. You don't kill them. Sweet. But, so what do you think some of the problems are with modern fitness? Physical education. Physical education, I guess we should say.
Yeah, physical education, I think it's just the biggest problem is the de-emphasis of its importance. You know, everything's been subsumed by technology, you know, in the schools, just pushing the technology and being tech savvy. Like, well, it doesn't matter, you know, if your kid is obese and can't run a quarter mile or do a pull-up or, you know, carry a quarter of his body weight 100 yards. None of that seems to matter anymore, because we have this belief that technology will fix everything.
Yeah.
You know, we de-emphasize the importance of physical education. I don't think everywhere, but I think that's the general trend. So that's the main hurdle to overcome. And at this point, I'd say almost anything is better than nothing, which is not exactly true. Ideally, we'd start teaching people MoveNat, how to move naturally in the basic components of human movement, and how to perform, how to develop physical competency at an early age. That's got to be the start of it.
Mm-hmm. What are some other problems that need to be addressed? You know, like we talked about mindfulness. There's not much mindfulness in it. We've already developed that to some extent. But what other... But then, yeah, like, they need to focus more on the individual instead of just groups of people kind of doing stuff. Have more focus on the individual and technique. Like La Sierra, you see some of the individual stuff people would do, but they actually had a triad of individual stuff for technique and sports and martial arts.
Yeah.
You don't see so much of the sports and martial arts component that they did from the classical tradition, but those were there as well because they wouldn't do everything every day. They had, from what I've heard, zero or close to zero injury rate, even in spite of the amazing things and the difficult physical feats they were doing.
Yeah, if you get a good enough foundation going, that should be the norm, is a low physical injury rate. MoveNat teaches that everybody's responsible for an internal assessment of risk and danger. You got to know your capabilities, and you got to listen to a little voice that says maybe this next event or something you're going to try is beyond your current skill levels, and have enough of your ego check to listen to that little voice and then build up slowly. You have very little risk of injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one of the other problems we have is, like we talked about a little bit, is the emphasis on group or sports activities, like organized sports, as opposed to individual accomplishments or even aspects of fitness. Personally, I always put just raw strength as the basis of all my fitness. Not necessarily moving massive amounts of weight like a power lifter or a strength athlete, but just general raw strength. You got to have a certain amount of strength in your legs to run at any speed or for any distance.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a certain amount of strength in your major joints and your connective tissue before you can undergo high rep calisthenics or any kind of jumping, for instance. The impact forces from just a small jump is beyond most people now. So start with strength. Kindergarten through fourth grade, just let these kids move around and get acquainted with center of gravity, balance, ground position. Then have a 2-year focus on strength when they're in that, right when they hit puberty. They're going through those hormonal changes. Man, that's the opportunity to develop that strength. You get some crazy strong individuals if you focused on that right when those hormones are surging. 6th,
Cool.
7th grade.
And
Then you work on your skill. Get a strength base and work on skill afterwards.
And I know you got to go fairly soon, so.
Yes, unfortunately, the time goes quick when we're chatting about these things.
Yeah. So much to say, so little time. So, but we got into some important things about what's missing in modern physical education, and then can put some links up so people can see a little bit about when some stuff started, what's going on. But there needs to be more focus on technique, mindfulness, and that comes with doing both individual and group activities. So it's not like get rid of the sports, but they need to be put in their place. And you can't really do a sport to practice a range of movements until you can do the movements correctly.
Yeah.
Then, as you're saying, when you build strength and some things like that, we wouldn't have all this repetitive use injury that's happening nowadays because people do just some sports and think they can do the same sport all year round without consequence.
You see these guys, these Instagram influencers, the bench press, and they bench press so often, so much they tear a pec.
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy to me. I don't understand those kinds of injuries. Or you rupture a bicep tendon because you're on these, you've overdone the preacher curls for the show muscles so often. That's just amazing.
Yeah, interesting.
We could chat. I might have to have you come up to Michigan sometime.
That'd be nice.
Hang out on one of our events. We get to sit around the fire at night and chat.
Sweet. That would be awesome. Whether it's in the use in summer or non-summer, it'd be nice to get away from the heat, but it'd be cool to get up there when it's like ice cold and get into that for a change. Vary my conditions and all that.
Yeah, it'd be I think our coldest this last year we had, we did a night in February up in the top of the low peninsula. And we were down in some lowlands, and we got 28 below that night.
Wow. We've got 28 above, but we ain't got 28 below down here.
Yeah, we weren't expecting that either. We were thinking it would get down to the teens, so I took the one blanket.
Wow.
That was a terrible mistake. That's the coldest I've been in probably a decade.
Wow. Live and learn.
Yeah.
But
we'll pick a more moderate night for you to come out, a couple nights.
Yeah. You got any final words for folks about the state of modern physical education and the problems it causes and what we might do about it?
Well, I think we outlined some of the big problems, but I believe in trying to be relentlessly optimistic. So I think we're in a good position with this, especially with this MCE thing. And again, I'm probably personally biased about it, but I think once we get a few schools in, get this program in schools and get some recognition of the difference it makes, it's kind of like getting a snowball started. I feel pretty optimistic about it. I think they're going to do a good job.
Yeah, like last year all over again, but try to have it last longer.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah. And then some people have to keep good human traditions and the best in humanity going. So, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it was nice talking to you again. Hopefully,
likewise. Awesome.
Get on here with Megan in a month or so once they get the MCE going and see how it goes.
That'd be great. Awesome. All right. So good luck with your chores and business today, and
yeah, thanks.
Enjoy. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Take care.
You too. Bye. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Sorry for the little glitch we had in there, beyond our control. But yes, if we could all try to influence ourselves, people around us, talk to people, make videos, talk to local schools, call them principals, teachers, physical education coaches, colleges that do that. Try to talk, convince, teach, pressure, get understanding, make connections so we could improve the physical education and hence the human life of children and the youth and ourselves. To some extent, we can't teach it unless we know it a little bit or can do it. We can't convince unless we know. So improve ourselves to help improve others. Improve ourselves just to improve ourselves, because every human life is worth it. But we need to do that to make the culture better, make society better, help the youth and our children be more, have more optimal mental and physical prowess, be the best that they can be. But that's going to come, as I say, from influencing education. We've got to start there, start at a cultural level, start with the knowledge, and develop bit by bit. So please, share MoveNat information, talk to coaches, influence them, push for improvements. You can reach out to MoveNat people, reach out to me, reach out to Jon, make connections. That's where it starts in society. But thank you for listening, and get out in society, indoors, outdoors. Be a good human animal and be the best you can be. Peace.